representative, 3rd District State Representative position number 2, and we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for an opening statement. And we'll start with Representative Ormsby.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? I know that I was in the back of the room on the last panel.
Yes, Dan,
It's a little difficult to hear. Can everybody hear me? My name is Timm Ormsby. I'm currently the state representative for the 3rd District, position number 2. It's been my privilege and honor to serve in that capacity for nearly 7 years. I was appointed in September of 2003, and this will be my 4th election that I will be involved in. I grew up in the Logan neighborhood, very near Gonzaga University. I was one of 8 boys. I was the 3rd one. My dad all called us by numbers because there were so many of us. I'm a concrete finisher by trade. We call ourselves cement masons, pour and finish concrete. I went to St. Aloysius Catholic School and graduated from North Central. In 1972, when I was in the 8th grade, we practiced football right over here at Corbin Park. So I've walked, bicycled, and driven this entire district throughout the course of my life. And it's been the highest honor and privilege that I've ever had to be able to have this job, to feel that I have the knowledge and the information about who the people are that live in this district and what are their hopes and aspirations, and try and represent that when I get to Olympia. One of the things that I learned about growing up in a family of 8 boys, and we were all within about 10 years of each other, so my folks were awful busy, and we were all boys, and so there was a little bit of fighting going on. I also know from my experience raising 3 adult children and being a concrete finisher that it is absolutely, certainly not about me. I'm quite sure of that. I've always been required to be a team member. I've been required to subjugate my personal wants and needs to the greater good. That was the lesson that we were taught at the kitchen table every single day, and it's something that I've tried to apply in this job. I'm not an expert. I'm a high school graduate, but I think that I'm certainly not overly educated, but I do think that representing the 3rd District is about representing the values of the work ethic of the people that I grew up and lived my life with, and it's been my honor to do that.
Thank you. And Hector.
Hello, my name is Hector Martinet. I've lived here since 1990. I am a single parent that raised 3 children in the city of Spokane. It's the only city that I believe a single parent can really afford to raise children in and really have the quality of life that we all want for our families. At least that's the way it was back in 1990. I can remember when Wilkes & Wilkes was there and not the Northtown Mall. The Northtown Mall was just an open square. Now it's a giant mall. It was a beautiful city back then, and I think it can be a beautiful city again. But at this point, it's fallen into an abyss. I went walking with my granddaughters the other day to the park right behind my home. I live on the north side. And a lady was being stalked. I actually had to stay there with her until her mother came to pick her up. There's bodies floating up darn near every week in Spokane now in the river. I won't even go swimming in there because of all the things in the river nowadays. My son took the boat out the other day to Long Lake, and he says there's fish floating this big in the lake. There was a shooting yesterday in West Central. A gentleman in his 20s was killed. Last night, I guess at some Club Uno, these people are just slashing people randomly in the crowds. Just like we are here in a crowd, somebody went through the crowd slashing people. Crime has gotten out of control in Spokane. I just see people getting tagged, and then they are responsible not only because they had their property damaged, but they have to go out and clean it up. And these people are just taking advantage of the elderly. I have an older lady across the street from me that lives alone that I have to watch because she's scared of people. That the gentleman next door to her is in a wheelchair, and he had his door. What they do is they knock on the door, and then they see if you're home, and then they push it in. Well, he had his door pushed in at 5 in the afternoon, and everybody knows it's lighter than this out at that time. So I'm here because the legislatures don't seem to be doing their job. There's over 70 initiatives right now that the people are pushing forward, and I would like to see something done. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Michael, for inviting me, and I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out to come today. It's a lot bigger crowd than I thought would be here. I'd like to talk a little bit about myself. My entire adult life, which is not very long, has been working with at-risk youth, both in California and here in Spokane. And I've seen that the legislature has failed them. They have not met their basic responsibility to care for these kids who are dependents of the state, who are involved in the criminal justice system, and they're being just turned loose on the community, and that's what contributes to a lot of the issues that Hector was just talking about.
Speak up.
Okay, I'll project.
And your name.
My name is Morgan Oyler. I went to Gonzaga. I graduated with a degree in history, and I've lived in Spokane for a little over 8 years now. This election cycle is about charting a new path for our state. The deficit spending, the massive job losses, and the dependence on the federal government have failed everywhere they've been tried. In New York, in Illinois, in Michigan, and especially in California. And they will fail in Washington if we stay on this same path. I believe that Washington should have the best schools, the safest communities, and the most innovative social programs anywhere in America. And I'm running because our current elected officials have failed in their most basic responsibilities, and we can't afford 2 more years of Timm Ormsby.
Would each of you let us know your party affiliation, please?
Oh, yes, I identify as a Republican, and in case anyone asks, I was a John McCain Republican and was shouted out of the caucus 2 years ago for supporting Senator McCain.
Representative
I'm a lifelong Democrat.
Hector?
I can't remember ever voting Democrat on my Tea Party.
Okay. So I'll ask a quick question here. Do you believe the state should use one-time federal grant dollars to support ongoing programs or close budget gaps? And Hector, we'll start with you.
I believe they should close the budget gaps. If you cannot afford it, you should get rid of it. That's just it, period. We are taxed to death. They are finding loopholes to get around the tax laws so that they can tax us more. They are just oppressing the people of this city over and over, and our tax dollars are not going to this city. You see the crime is up. We're relying on federal dollars to fight crime and get new police cars for our police. We need to bring those dollars here, so I do not support that. No.
I think federal grant dollars should be used for their specific intention, and if the federal government says, yes, use this to fill these holes, then that's an appropriate use. But if it shouldn't just go into the general operating fund. So if it's the original intent, then yes, I can support that.
Let's not forget that in September of 2008, we began what was a global economic meltdown. We have about a $32 billion state budget. We were short on revenue by $12 billion. That's one heck of a chunk of money. So the revenue that was coming into the state was short by over a 2-year period, $12 billion. And so the question is, taking one-time money, which we got from the federal government, I absolutely was happy to take that money. It accounted for about, if we're going to take that $12 billion and just make it $12, it accounted for about 5 of those $12, and I was happy to take that money because the devastation that would have occurred would have been astronomical. We know that we're in difficult times, and we know that we have to live within our budget. Another $5 came from cutting programs that people have been used to, services for at-risk youth, for example, for foster children and other very worthy needs, and about not. So we've got about $2 of this $12 left to solve. We did it with $1.20 of that was shifting money that would have been going towards capital projects that we would have done to build things. But we shifted it to the operating budget to save those very necessary government functions. 80 cents of that $12 came in new taxes, and it was the last resort. It came at the end, the final decision-making point of a 2-year budget. So yes, I was happy to take that federal money. We're hoping to get another $480 million in FMAP. It's a convoluted federal term that means federal Medicaid and Medicare dollars. And I think that it is a worthy function of the federal government to provide for the sustainability and the existence of the functions of state government.
Okay, do we have a question from the crowd?